welcome. Thank you for joining me on a pilgrimage this time. I'm Thomas Dodderwick, and I come to you from Santa Fe, New Mexico, on our Saints and Martyrs of America pilgrimage. And instead of sitting down with a single guest this week, I thought I'd allow some of the pilgrims on this pilgrimage to share in their own words what this experience has meant to them. Be assured of our continued prayers, as right now as this is dropping, we're still on the pilgrimage, and know that you remain in our prayers and we ask for your prayers. We look forward to returning to Montana and sharing our experience even more in our own communities once we get back.
Well, I got the brochure in the mail. And the first thought that came to my mind that I want to come here, because I'd been through Santa Fe before and heard about these places, but I'd never had the opportunity to come. So that's what made up my mind right away.
We began on Billings, on our first morning at the co-cathedral of Billings to celebrate Mass. And it was a wonderful way to kick off our trip together, and for us to immediately begin to come together in prayer as fellow pilgrims. We've become brothers and sisters over the last few days, and the bishop has become more and more shepherd-like every day, and that's his true calling. He's a pastor's pastor. So then from there we traveled down to Casper, and we had a wonderful evening there at a small church that had originally been a part of the Air Force Base, but then had been remodeled and updated in part into this absolutely holy and welcoming and inviting space. And the local pastor was so excited to have us there. It was wonderful. We spent the night in Casper, and then the next day, I thought we had probably encountered what might be the best event of the trip when we arrived at the cathedral for Saint Mother Ann Seton. And that church was new, but it had a feeling of ancientness and holiness that takes us all the way back to the first days of our faith.
Well, we're here at the Stations of the Cross, and it's a beautiful day, probably much like it was the day that Christ was crucified. But there is a sense of power here. These sculptures are gorgeous. They have beautiful faces. Even in all the pain, the eyes speak, the lips speak. And it's just been really powerful to walk with other of our pilgrims and get their observations. It's a prayer in conversation. And I think that's really important right now as we celebrate Lent, that we know that we're not alone in this journey of Lent, that we do this together, and that in the end, Jesus wins.
Even if you are not Catholic, even if you have not had much of an affinity for the Stations of the Cross, walking and praying these stations, with or without pilgrims, with or without yourselves, anybody, regardless of the weather, it was a heartwarming, spirit-filling moment. For me, the trip officially rolled over into a pilgrimage when Deacon Steve and I walked in, and he had his hand on one side of the massive stone altar, and I put my hand on the other side, and immediately it began to whisper about all the masses that had been celebrated throughout time, all of the priests who had been celebrating Mass, all of the bishops who had ordained those priests, and the priests that, all the way back in time, just happened in an instant. Ireland is supposedly a place that we call, full of places we call thin places, where you can come and be intimately close. And even though I've been a student of Celtic spirituality and a teacher of Catholic spirituality, in that moment, the Southwest was in my heart, even though I had lived in Phoenix. We had lived in Denver. We were very familiar with the Hispanic Catholic culture, but I never really felt it. And later I learned that the deacon was just as moved as I was about it, because we heard about it in his homily. And then the next day we traveled to, that same day we traveled down to Santa Fe and went into the Basilica Church of St. Francis of Assisi. There's more to it, but that's the point. And we celebrated Mass in a side chapel. The simplicity, but the ornate beauty, it's hard to say that you have a church that's both humble and uplifting at the same time. And it was a marvelous experience with the Eucharist and coming together with our brothers and sisters. And now today, we are at a place called Santuario, or the Sanctuary.
What can I say and what can I not say? The second we entered here, I've always had like a passion for Native American history since my husband's an enrolled tribal member. And the number of saintly people that wanted Christ in their lives through our Catholic Christianity. When the grounds are beautiful, they're peaceful. There's a serenity here in the midst to see the Luminaria celebrations and to see the Stations of the Cross celebrations and to see the 7 days crosses in the background and to visit the chapel here. There's times I was overcome with emotion when we went in to get the Holy Earth. I'm a person who can't kneel because I have knee issues, and 2 ladies were there that I didn't know. They helped me get off my knees because they knew that's what I desired. They opened my little bags and they closed them for me as I was filling them up. And I got to pray with one of them whose daughter was in the Remembrance Chapel. Her daughter was a Marine, and I got to pray with her. A little gal in the gift shop, she showed me, I bought a book, and she says, "Oh, my great-grandmother's in the book." And so I had her sign my book. The connection to the people. We had a gentleman here, he just come up and he goes, "Hi, how are you guys?" We said, "We're wonderful, how are you? And this is your first time?" He says, "Oh no, I was born in Santa Fe. I was born, but 2 days a week, Tuesdays and Thursdays, he brings seniors here from Santa Fe." And so we got to talk to him and love on him. And that's the joy. I'm overcome with joyous emotion.
And if you want to capture something, if you want to bring it into yourself, call it what it is, name it, give it a name. And so I now understand that I'm on a pilgrimage. I'm with people that are here. And Father Jovan in his homily said, as pilgrims, we are changed on pilgrimage. And we are changing, and we will be changed. And I don't mean to say that we're going to go home and be changed. It's beginning a process of change that we will carry with us.
This Lent, we decided to make pilgrimage. We saw the bulletin at St. Bernard's in Billings, is where our daughter worships. And it was the 3rd Sunday of Advent. Bishop Jeff was there. So we got to greet him and, visit with him, and took the bulletin home like my husband does. He steals the bulletins from your churches, people. And the bulletin announcement was there. What precipitated it, because we kept saying we want to tour the Southwest. We need to go to there's this pulling, this yearning. And we go, what better time to do it? He hates to drive. He doesn't like to drive, but the blessing of community here, and that's what brought us this Lent.